I'm standing in the middle of a cornfield in Iowa. It's 1978. It's a hot day. My brother is next to me. Who cares? Are you interested yet? I'm not. More interesting beginning. I just have a bad feeling about today. You don't know where I am. You don't know, but you're with me. You're going to keep reading to figure out where I am, to figure out what I'm talking about. So this idea that the reader's going to get confused if you don't cram all this information into the first paragraph is the opposite. They're going to be really bored. So I think there are 5 different ways of starting out your scenes, none of which indicate to your reader where you are. You can eventually do it in the 3rd sentence or down the road. Sometimes you don't, sometimes they'll figure it out. I call it the coffee cup beginning. In a movie, sometimes you will start with the exterior of the house. Then you'll see the living room. Then you'll see who's in the living room. But I would say it is as common in a movie to start on a coffee cup. You don't know who, and then the camera pulls out and you see there's a hand on the coffee cup that probably belongs to a woman. The camera pulls out again and you see the woman is seated in an old chair that's falling apart. The camera pulls apart more and you see that she's actually in a chair, I don't know, in the middle of the desert. So that's kind of what I'm suggesting you do with your scenes. We don't have to know that you're in the desert, in a chair, that you're a woman holding a cup of coffee. Maybe we just see a cup of coffee. It's kind of just get into your scene. It doesn't really matter. My example of this is from Tanya's book. I've always loved this scene. Tanya was really struggling with how to get into her scene. And I'm like, just start, right? And I kind of give her the coffee cup beginning.
I'd homeschooled my kids, and Savannah was meant to be starting school for the very first time. And we missed the first 2 weeks of school because 1, I didn't get the dates right. I'd forgotten. And 2, I had allowed her to go up into this music festival up in the mountains where she actually had a job. And I was called into the dean's office to berate me about what an awful mother I was. His hairy arms fascinated
me. I can't remember the earlier versions of this, but it just wasn't working. And I'm just like, start. Just put the camera, not the literal camera, but you put your point of view anywhere in the room is really what the coffee cup beginning is. And this is Tanya's example of deciding to put her point of view here with this principal or this director. Here's the wrong way that Tanya probably started out. Maybe you didn't, Tanya. The wrong way to do this, like we're sitting in the principal's office. My daughter Savannah is to my right. The principal is in front of me. It's a wooden desk, bore. Is it interesting? No. We're going to figure it out. This comes from, so this is what I was talking to Julie. The carrots had to be sliced perfectly. Julie was struggling with the scene and I'm like, just start with the damn carrots. Put your point of view somewhere interesting in that scene and just start, go from there. I kept getting my lipstick outside of the lines. The tea was unsweetened. His copy of Oliver Twist had been left behind. Just put the camera somewhere and get into your scene. So if you were stuck starting your scene, just start. Use a line of dialogue. Here's what I'm trying to do, guys. I'm trying to unstick you. Sometimes it can feel intimidating to sit down and start writing that first sentence. So if you have these tricks, once you get into the scene, it's pretty easy, right? If you know the main event you're writing toward. So I'm trying to help you with that beginning to get you started writing. So use a line of dialogue. Now, it works better if the dialogue is interesting. How are you? My mother says, not the best beginning to a scene, right? An interesting line of dialogue can work. I do have a caution for you. When people start with dialogue, they have the temptation to start with dialogue from the middle of the scene and then go back in time and catch me up. Don't do that. You want to tell your scenes chronologically. So don't say, we can't find Muffin. The dog is missing. And 2 hours earlier, I remember closing the gate and making sure Muffin couldn't get out. Don't do that. If you're going to start with that, keep moving forward chronologically from there. So don't be tempted to start with a line of dialogue from the middle of the scene, go back to the beginning and catch me up. It doesn't work. So if it's a line of dialogue, it should be the beginning of the scene. These are not hard and fast categories. Sometimes the coffee cup beginning could actually also be stating your main event in a general way. I'm trying to come up with tips for you, with ways for you to have ideas so you don't have that blank page syndrome. I don't care about you like learning there are 5 ways to try out a scene. That's not what I'm trying to get you to take away from this. I want writing scenes to be easier, and these are different techniques that could get you there. That was the day he slapped me for the first time. You can start your scene by telling us what's going to happen, especially if your scene is really short. That's when this tends to work the best. Sometimes you can actually state what is going to happen and come back to it. Sometimes you can state what's going to happen in a more general way. This is from,
Joan.
she won a contest for
Yes.
this, best book beginning with this scene.
I'm Staten Island food critic. I'm 4 years old when I staged my first rebellion. We are late for a party, but my mother needs to go to the bathroom. I wait outside, looking down at my brown dress with its white Peter Pan collar. It hits me with that murky dress is the exact color of liver. Brainy, leathery, stinky liver, which my mother cooks at least once a week, and which I hate more than any other food. I don't like this dress, I tell her through the door. I don't want to wear it. It's classy and it's beautiful, she says. I look down and see only liver. I gag twice, and then, with a great heave, I throw up all over myself. She flings open the bathroom door and looks me over, fuming. What you just did, she says between clenched teeth, is a sin to God. I think about God, busy watching over the beach, and I don't imagine he will care a whit about my smelly brown dress.
So with actually a couple of events, she throws up on her dress. That is certainly a main event. So she summarized this in a general way, and then we have the specific event that she actually throws up on the dress. This is a way, if you were stuck with how to get into your scene and you have a short scene, you think about the specific event that happens and then think about stating it in a more general way. So if your specific main event, the reason you're writing your scene is, you know what, I realize I'm going to fall in love with this man, right? That's your realization. Well, how do you start in a more general way? Well, this whole scene is existing. It was the time I met Mario, right? Your event is that I realize he's going to be a part of my life. But so you could start it with, well, I meet Mario. The day I meet Mario is at the dog park. Okay, well, there I started by telling us where you are, but it's a little bit different. Remember in the very first slide, I'm like, I really get annoyed when people tell me where they are in the first sentence. However, here it's a little bit different because it's like the day I meet Mario, we're at the dog park. It's not saying we are at the dog park. We are surrounded by Cocker Spaniels. We are, do you know what I mean? It's a little different. You're kind of making a point. Really, this is about the day I meet Mario. It's like the exception to where it doesn't bother me if you tell me where you are. Because that's not why it exists. When it bothers me is like, we are at the dog park. It's a warm day. There are Cocker Spaniels scurrying back and forth. That annoys me because I see what the writer's doing. Whereas here, I don't have that same problem because it's really about meeting Mario. Your general event could be a hike. The specific event is that James gets bit by a rattlesnake, a birthday party. There's a specific event that I'm going to write toward. That's one way to think of your scene if you're stuck. This is something that I talk about in the complete memoir writing kit. If you are struggling with your scene structure, this is such a great way to get yourself unstuck, is to ask yourself, what do I want at the beginning of this scene? What actually happens? And what do I realize as a result of what happens? These 3 questions can lead to great scene structure. This is a little bit bigger than how do I start my scene, but if you can answer these questions and if they go together, it can be a really great way of understanding why your scene exists. I've used these questions in working with people when they had the writing from memory problem. They're describing going to the opera and they arrive at the opera and what everyone is wearing and what the opera is about and what the singers sing about, and then intermission. They don't really know why their scene exists. So I might start by saying, well, what happens to give your scene a reason to exist? And then work backwards. What did you want prior to that happening? Let's say at the opera, your mother-in-law lets it slip that you had been married before and your husband doesn't know. So that's what happens. Well, prior to that happening, what did you want? I just wanted to have a romantic evening out with my husband without my mother-in-law getting in the way. Usually it's the opposite. You probably wanted the opposite. And then this event turns things around. That is the what do you want? What happens? What do you realize way of constructing a scene? I have an example here. This is from a client. Her book's coming out in April. Go buy Pam's book. It's called Honestly, She Doesn't Live Here Anymore. Pam was really struggling with this scene. And I'm like, Pam, let's do what happens. What do you want? And what do you realize? And that's how she redid the scene based on that.
I have 45 minutes before my next meeting, so I decided to call my mom. She is razor sharp about people. What do you think he meant? I asked, after telling her that Dennis said about what Dennis said about our future. Well, my mother's voice trails off. She sounds evasive at the other end of the line. I can tell she's preoccupied the way she uh-huhs and mms, as if she's only partially listening to me. The last time I asked her opinion, Dennis, she shrugged it off and simply said, "It's your life." This time I'm hoping to get more out of her to understand how she really feels. Finally, my mother comes around and says, "Do you find him a bit controlling?" The way she says it is offhanded, the way she'd ask if I liked another helping of dessert, as if I shouldn't read too much into her question, as if there is no one right answer. Is Dennis controlling? I wonder as I sit back down at my desk. I don't think so. He loves me. If my mother felt this way, why has she never said anything? Instead, she lent me over Chanel bag for parties and cheered me on as I happily waltzed out the door. Mom says she has to hang up because my father's coming home soon. Before she gets off the phone, she has one final thing to say. You don't need to rush into anything. This stops me, a red sign, a warning. In this one sentence, it's as if she's finally come out and said how she feels.
Not a ton happening either, really. There's not lots of little mini events. This scene is definitely not suffering from the writing from memory problem. This writer knows why this scene exists. So what does Pam want at the beginning of the scene?
She wants her mother's opinion about her boyfriend.
What happens? So she calls up her mom, and what does mom do?
She deflects.
And she tries to delay saying,
there's this whole long thing. It's really the same thing happening over and over again in a different way. There's not a little bit of everything in the scene, which is what makes it so effective. Really clear reason why this scene exists. End of the scene, what does Pam realize? Mom doesn't like him. So this is a way, so the scene is very clear. How do you feel? So this is really, if you are stuck, this one always works. So I like this one as well. The other one, what do you want is a little more specific, but it's not always that you want something. Let's go back to the opera example. Maybe you didn't really, the want is just having a hard time. Well, what did I really want? I don't know. That doesn't feel sincere that I wanted the night to go off well. So maybe how do you feel? Maybe you have this feeling of dread. I should be happy about the opera. I love going to the opera, but I just had the feeling that something's going to go wrong. So you can replace the question, what do you want, with how did you feel at the beginning? Sometimes what did you want can come off as insincere if you didn't actually want that. It sounds nice on paper. Oh, it fits in perfectly. I really wanted to have a romantic evening and it's spoiled when my mother-in-law ruins it. So it fits in really nicely. But if that wasn't true, it usually shows in the writing. If you're trying to force it because it sounds like good plot, I can usually tell. So don't go with what do I want just because it fits in perfectly. It has to be true. If you're having a hard time, go with what did I feel? What was I thinking? Go with sincerity. You guys know I'm not a big fan of emotion words because they tend not to be very good writing. So instead of the emotion words, what would the thoughts be that went through your head? If you're like, well, that night I was really tired, because that is what you remember. You're not going to remember the words that went through your head. So the art of memoir writing is emulating what would have gone through your head at the time. So maybe your scene starts with, I haven't slept for 24 hours. I struggle to keep my eyes open. Or maybe I actually prefer starting with, I know I shouldn't be driving. I think that's actually my favorite sentence to start with. I know I shouldn't be driving. I've been awake for 24 hours now. That's a more interesting sentence. I was trying to put words. What would the words be that went through your head that you could start out your scene with?
When often you guys start a scene, I will cut and paste a paragraph or a few sentences and I will get and I will put it at the very top and always say, put yourself directly in the scene as you start. Because a lot of times what you've put in is you trying to set up the scene, but it still works. Not always, but mostly it still works. If you just start and look where you've actually put yourself directly in the scene, just put it at the top, change a few words and let the rest come. It works.
I see this all the time. I know exactly what you're talking about, Tanya. A lot of times those first 2 paragraphs are kind of warm up. We just get rid of them and the scene works perfectly. This is one reason I created this class, is because I see that a lot. I can see you trying to figure out how to start out that scene. And sometimes you just, yeah, fine. But now maybe you don't need that warm up. If you know that you just do the coffee cup beginning, pick somewhere. Or this is probably my favorite. What do you want? What happens? And optional, what do you realize? I like this one because it really forces you to understand your scene. It can really help create the right structure for your scene and help you figure out where you need to actually start it. This one probably is my favorite. It solves multiple problems.